I'm Keith McCullough, and welcome back. I ended that last one by saying I was going to bring on some people who could scare the hell out of you. I think Neil Howe could, if he wanted to, right? With the fourth turning, for those of you that don't know Neil, it can get scary. But I really meant it like through the lens of like JT. He has to like live in Washington, D.C. And that's to me entirely more frightening, Neil. So I know Americans are freaking out. We need to address that. I'd like to actually go right to the wood on that. In a great note that I read from you, you said a shockingly large share of Americans think that America is heading towards a catastrophe. I hear this every single day in the market, right? To me, it's actually a light. You know, I don't have to be the darkness from Gen X, but I am wearing black, whatever. But I found a lot of gain to be had in fading what has become, I'm not saying a misplaced fear. I'm saying a monetizable fear. So I want to get into that because first I want to get you to define why Americans are freaking out.
It's a good question. I think from politically, it's the idea that we're heading up to a place constitutionally we've never been before, right? So that scares people. People don't know quite how the mechanics of politics in this country is being run. We've never had a period, Keith, where a president basically runs without Congress. It's interesting if you read through the Constitution, and this isn't something that many Americans do anymore. Yeah, it actually is a document. You know, you can actually read it. But the first 2/3 of it is all about Congress. It's not about the president. Congress is supposed to be making laws. Congress is supposed to be setting policy. Now, there are a lot of good reasons why Republicans say that Congress has failed. And again, there are a lot of good reasons for that. So I'm not saying, this is not a right or wrong argument, Kate. But what I'm saying is that the idea of a government working without Congress is just something we've never had, right? I mean, going all the way back.
Yep.
And I don't know, JT, do you want to add something to this?
No, you're 100% right. This is unprecedented, and it's in sort of our lifetimes when we've both been watchers of the process here. No president has ever asserted this power. No president has ever asserted this control. And I have never seen a Congress much as subservient, maybe is probably the good word, to a president as I've seen this Congress. And of course, just the Republicans only. So that to me is the stunning part here, is that there is one part. I think it feels to me as if we're headed to one-party control, and they do control everything right now, and we'll get into the government shutdown later, I suspect, Keith. And the Democrats' only lever, of course, is this CR right now, and they're using it to the hilt. And the Republicans are just moving in lockstep. And I think as we look at more authoritarian rule here, there is a lot of fear out there that with Trump emboldened with each and every passing day, that there's no stopping him. And I do feel that he's emboldened. I think that this is just the beginning.
Remember this, Keith, that at the darkest hour of the Great Depression, when FDR came in and put through his 100 days, his New Deal, this is when the stock market was down by what, 85%? GDP was down by, double digits. Unemployment was way into the double digits, over 20%. Banks were closed all over America. But here's the point. FDR did everything through Congress, even in that dark hour. And everyone was calling FDR a dictator. He woke up in the morning, got together with his brain trust, came up with a bill, trotted over to the House in the morning, got it passed, went over to Senate, and then signed it in the evening. It might have been fast, but it was done with Congress. Now, of course, the advantage is he had a big majority, right?
Yep.
In Congress. So he didn't have to worry about filibuster. But this is new territory. It is not the way our government was designed to be run. and even conservatives like to make a big deal about originalism and how our government has historically always been done. Republic, rule of law. Certainly when Biden was in power, you heard a lot from conservatives about that. This is not the way our republic has ever been run before, and it makes people feel nervous. They also feel the emotional tenor of government has changed. It's all us versus them. This is another thing I wanted to get to, and you saw it with, you saw it at the Kirk Memorial, Charlie Kirk Memorial. You've seen it. You saw it at the Pam Bondi hearings. And JT, I don't know if you ever watched any of the Pam Bondi hearings, but I want to get your opinion on that. It's like the veil has been taken off. These people not even pretend to be friendly to each other. They just openly hate each other.
And such disdain. Yep.
Yeah, and it's one side is going to win. It's all about winning. And I will add this because I think it's important. Everyone, all of the responsible editorials in the Wall Street Journal and so on, they're always saying, oh, you shouldn't do away with the filibuster. You shouldn't do any of these terrible things, weaponize justice, do lawfare, because eventually, you're going to be on the other side. I'm beginning to think the Trump administration never plans to be on the other side. They don't ever plan to be out of power. How do you see this?
It's like it's an interesting thing. Nobody cares like how I think it ends. It's more or less like how it is though. Like if I take your framework, your longer term framework, right? There's a huge component of this that's demographic. That we are in the fourth turning. We understand that this is where the establishment and all the powers that be are distrusted. Like. If you're just to start with that, you'd say, no shit, nobody cares what Congress thinks anymore, including Trump, right? And then you have huddle up, and I don't care about any of your media, any of your mainstream media that's commenting on it on either side, and I'd prefer to go listen to Joe Rogan or Taylor Swift. Like, I'm not, and then if I can label them political, maybe I'll cancel them too. But it's really like this, to me, this moment in time where people, I see a lot of people that really want to find the truth. And I personally, maybe it's because I'm Canadian, I don't care about the particular line items in Congress if it's going to be the Congress that we've had from Republicans and Democrats for the last 20 years. I don't want that.
Oh, I think a lot of people agree with you. And this is why there's such a unenergetic response, right?
Right.
On the other side. But there will come a time either if either the Democrats feel that the elections have been tampered with, or Trump is defying a Supreme Court order, there will come a time when Democrats simply withdraw from Congress. I've been predicting this, right? Wow. They'll simply say, why are we here anymore? We're simply legitimizing this regime we don't like. We have no voice. We have no say. We're going to regroup up in Lake Placid, New York or something. You know what I mean? But you understand that enters a very new dynamic. Now, if you want to put up that one slide about fears of civil war, I don't know if we have that one. Do you see that, Eric? That's actually it's mayhem of all sorts. You see that? I think that's the last slide.
Yeah, we get all the way to the end of the slide deck immediately.
Yeah, this was frightening. This is a recent. This was, I guess, June, a YouGov poll, but you're talking about 50% of Americans having a very dire outlook, right? And you didn't see anything like this, 5 years ago.
No, never.
Not even close.
Well, isn't that the point, JT? Like once you get there, once everybody just hates each other, you're gonna have a real fight.
Yeah, and you get to the Civil War. I mean, that was remember back at that time, I can't tell you how many people. First, to your point about 2 minutes ago, Keith, about the truth and news, and I can't tell you how many people come to me, whether I'm here or outside of this DC bubble, and like, where do you get your news? And I told Neil the other day is I read the most bland news items here in DC. It's something called CQ. We watch C-SPAN. I mean, it is as black and white as you could possibly get without commentary. but I can't watch CNN, I can't watch Fox or MSNBC or OAN or any of these things. No one. The truth is, we'll get into history in a second. Neil and I had a great chat about this the other day, but the truth is being spewed online by people with no background in institutions, in histories whatsoever. So that we are at a scary point right now. And anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with so again, we're in a big fight. People hate each other. That does create this real anger and that word catastrophe that people like me are capitalizing on in a bull market till it stops. I think I have a plan. At least I've had historically a plan to get out. Don't worry. At least don't worry for me yet. But it's okay for me right now. For now.
Yep.
We understand this. But the biggest fight is shutting down the government. Right? I mean, I think that if Neil says, look, they don't care what Congress says, he goes around it. Okay, and then we just shut down the government, so we're in that part of the fight. Let's go through that, Neil, first, and just get your take on, we're halfway to the longest one, I think, aren't we? 17 or 18 days?
We're halfway to the longest partial, and tomorrow we're at the longest full shutdown.
Okay, so how does this work? Who blames who? If I'm pumped, do I want to have a shutdown ongoing? I mean, I've said multiple times if I was him, I would.
Yeah, well, I mean, go back to what Neil said a second ago, Keith, is in that he's amassed all this power, and now with the shutdown, he's dictating who's essential, who's non-essential.
Yep.
He's talking about the RIFs, right? And he's going to go through here by the end of the week and start to eliminate funding for programs in Democratic states. So right now, he probably, look, Neil and I will talk in a second about public opinion and how we're so divided on who's to blame for the shutdown, even though I think the Republicans are getting a little bit more blame right now. I don't think he cares. This gives him the ability to, again, continue more reductions in force, the so-called RIF work. It lets him shrink the size of government and get to the point where Doge couldn't get earlier in the year. So I don't think it matters all that much to him. I think the breaking point at some point will become, as I said, toward the end of this month, when we get to this enrollment period for Obamacare, and I think that's when things start to get a little dicier for both parties, and someone's going to have to blink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all revolves right now around ACA tax credits. This is the Obamacare tax credits that were legislated as part of the COVID legislation. They're all due to expire at the end of the year. So a lot of middle class, this mainly affects middle class people who buy into their own private insurance, right? A lot of people are going to see huge increases in their out-of-pocket costs. Now, Kaiser Family Foundation did a poll, and they just show that overwhelmingly Americans think that this should be continued, right? As Americans think about almost any benefit. I mean, it's all being borrowed anyway. No one's paying for it, right, Keith? So why not when do we all get it? So in other words, and I think we have charts in there which basically show overwhelming majority, even 59% of Republicans think that this tax credit ought to be extended, right? Also, Democrats, the one thing the public trusts Democrats more than Republicans is anything to do with healthcare. So the Democrats are on pretty solid ground, and that's why the public blames Republicans more for this government shutdown, and also the Republicans control government. They have the White House, they have the House, they have the Senate. So anything that goes on really is blamed on the people in power. So the Democrats feel fine about this for now, and they're looking forward to the midterm. They're basically trying to communicate to Democrats. They're basically saying, come the midterm, remember we tried to do everything to stand up for your benefits, for what you guys need to actually, get through the year with healthcare, right? Yeah, and healthcare, Americans, the U.S. healthcare system, Keith, is an abomination. I mean, it's enormously expensive. It's tied up in paperwork. 1/3 of every medical office worker does nothing but paperwork. They don't do healthcare, right? I mean, it's a horrible system. All Americans know it, and I think that Trump it gives a little prayer of thanks at the end of every day that Republicans aren't making healthcare a bigger issue.
Yeah.
because obviously
Agree.
that's yeah. So they feel that they're on good ground here, but this is all have to do with positioning and setting yourself up for the midterm.
Right. The that slide 6, guys, where Neil just pointed out the percentages, they're extremely high. I mean, these are not. This isn't fake news, right? Again, this is well, anytime people say a poll, they might say that too. But again, like we'd like to be taken as seriously as we can. We know what a fake poll looks like. So, yeah. Did you want to add to that, JT, or you want to get into some tariff talk? Because I want to get through some.
Yeah, let's get into just. And I never answered your question about how bad it is. Just when you think how bad it is now, go back to 1856 when I believe it was Brooks, a senator from South Carolina.
Yeah, Preston Brooks
attacked Charles Sumner with a cane, Keith, on the floor of the Senate and almost beat him to death. So every time you talk about how bad things are right now, and they are bad, they're indeed very, very bad.
But
go back to the 18.
Back in that year, in the late 1850s, roughly half of all members of Congress went out to the floor of their house armed.
Yeah.
So they had knives, they had guns. I mean, this was, but interestingly enough, it's interesting to think about the Civil War. When Abraham Lincoln was elected, which was a shock, right? Because suddenly we had become completely polarized by regions. The old political system fell apart. The South was so demoralized and shocked that they seceded and thereby withdrew all of their congressmen from Congress, right? Which allowed then the Republicans to run everything. And so suddenly it was a game changer. Mm-hmm. If the southern states had stayed in Congress, they still had a majority in the Senate. They still had near a majority in the House. Nothing would have happened. You see, that's how the whole secession accelerates historical change.
Mm-hmm. Well, the things about fights, if you've ever been in a real one, right? They either keep going or you just walk away. I mean, it's like that walk away point. I don't think a lot of people have a great historical perspective like you do. But if you take it all the way back up to the top, like when somebody like me, Gen X, says, look, it's been bipartisan support for money printing, bipartisan support Republicans, Democrats for deficit spending, bipartisan support, therefore, for the debt and where we're at. Like, nobody trusts that ever, right? Because there is no other side of the trade. It's one way, both parties, get me, the fuck out of government spending if I'm not the biggest recipient of it. But you do find on the other side people that protect, like this is what I want. This is what I want. Well, they want they want what the third rail has become, right? Like they don't want you to take that away, and that's that's an interesting topic. But I mean, at least we're starting to dig into it a bit, like with some cuts. At least it's called RIF instead of layoff.
Yep.
Like I was saying to JT this morning, like I'm surprised that Pump hasn't come up with an acronym. He's in his own mind brilliant with this, right? Why doesn't he just call it, YOF, you're fired? I mean, that's what it is. Like, we don't need you. We don't need 23,000 people at the Federal Reserve. Bessent said some version of it yesterday in an interview. I mean, that's what they're doing. So some people like that. I mean, I personally would love to see not the human side of the trade, but the American, get better side of the trade, get rid of this Federal Reserve and all these people that work there. This is completely useless.
Well, Keith, the only thing I would add, this is from someone who's spent a large part of their career studying the budget, is that the actual employment in the federal government is only a tiny sliver of what they spend. That's it's not even 1%.
Right, I know.
So basically, the federal government in its spending is an enormous insurance company with an army attached. You realize it, right? That's all it is.
That's really good.
So it's all the cash comes in, and then 85% of the cash immediately comes back out. It goes to creditors, Social Security recipients, Medicare, civil service beneficiaries, veterans, and just on and on and on. The little part that's left is how we fund, the national parks, Oceanographic Institute, everything that we cut when the government shuts down. But we don't cut any of the rest of it. it's an enormous whale that just keeps on sailing forward. And it's not going to make any difference on these deficits that we've been projecting, right? 7-8% deficits come later on in this decade. That just keeps on going.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And and Keith and I do this probably every month when we talk about the lack of willpower in this Congress and prior Congresses to go after the debt and deficit. No willpower whatsoever. You do have, and they're friends of Hedgeye. We do have a handful of folks on the Republican side of the aisle, maybe a handful, if any, on the Democratic side, that are really serious about the debt and the deficit, but they're alone in the desert. Their voices in the wilderness, and so they can't get any traction. And Keith and Neil put it right when they said everyone is so wedded to their programs, so wedded to bringing pork back or projects back to their state, and there's no end in sight.
Yeah, I mean, there is whether you like it or not, though, there is a plan, right? Like that's empirically true. You know, whether it's the largesse of the big numbers and your inability to get rid of it on the spending side, or anything we want to talk about, I think that most will agree with that. I think where you get a lot of disagreement is where, like Bessent yesterday, he said, look, you know, the real plan here is to grow out of it, right? The real plan is to cut taxes, expense CapEx, you know, find a lot of different ways for business people to see deregulation and an easier life than what they've had to live with for a long time. Like, I wouldn't say that that's a terrible message to a capitalist running a company like that you're talking to. I mean, that's the other side of the trade, Neil, where we're going to, for the next 6 months ahead of the midterms, that's going to be their message with some tangible things. How do you think about that? We can get into tariffs too.
All right, I'll tell you what I think about it. Yeah, that's you got all this passive investing, and you got AI, and you got all this stuff. You got the market going this way. We're going to grow out of it. We're going to have okay. But on the other side of it, this just came out actually yesterday from the Dallas Fed. But I think everyone agrees. I think CBO agrees. We're going to see a huge reduction in employment growth. I mean, everyone agrees about that, both because of the aging of America. We have a very small generation now coming into the workforce, and we basically shut off immigration. So we're going to go from what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, about 250K increase in jobs per month, to about 30, right? That's the Dallas Fed. It just came out, basically said that's what we're looking forward to. So we're going to anemic growth. We're talking about maybe 0.2, 0.3% growth in the employment. And then you've got less global trade. Now, you know, you're a student of Adam Smith. I know, Keith, and, you know, division of labor, efficiency, productivity. Now, I think everyone agrees that we need less globalism. I think politically we need it. I think for national defense we need it. But there's going to come a cost. And whenever you've seen global trade decline, corporate earnings margins go down and overall productivity goes down. This is going to be a very difficult change for GDP growth. And look, you know how the valuations are all done on the stock market. It all has to do with, you know, you got your current yield and you expect it to grow with GDP. If that GDP suddenly goes down quite a bit in real terms, you're going to have a valuation problem out there. Now,
great about that, like you just about the summit for me, like David Rosenberg, who on those labor points, I think, Neil, you probably agree, he's one of the world's best economists, like in terms of rate of change analysis, long-term cycles of labor. He brought it back to me. He's like, well, and then to the profit level of the S&P 500, the growth, and what he really said was, what you're really betting on from here is the sustainability of that profit growth. Like this morning on the macro show, and I actually used it as the chart of the day, I'm showing short-term profit growth. So there's a point to this, right? Which is the market's always right. The market's probably going to price in for the next 6 months that profit growth's going to rip like you've never seen before, like where the green arrow goes. But nobody knows what happens beyond that hill. That's to sustain that level for a year, never mind 5 years, is almost mathematically impossible, just given the base effects. But it's like that's what when people say to me, Neil, like, Neil, like, how could you be bullish right now? Like, you've called bear market. In fact, I've called every single one. I mean, why aren't, like, they're like apoplectic about, like, what's wrong with you? Are you taking frickin' psilocybin before you have every macro show, dude, or what? Like it's like
it's easy to be bullish. It's easy to be bullish because most people don't look ahead very long, and right. So but that's just a fact of life. But what's amazing to me is that it is possible to be bullish near term and be also extremely pessimistic, realistically long term. That's kind of where the public is right now. Right now, I think among even the public, and we've seen unprecedented levels right now of household participation in the stock market, right? It's reaching record levels. I mean, how many people actually, I'm not talking about 401ks, I'm talking about taxable accounts, right?
Yeah.
People are investing. And the reason they are is that they're driven by FOMO. We still got money to make. We're going off a cliff at some time, but my God, until we get there, I want my piece of it. That's the mentality right now.
What is that generationally? Because, like, by generation, can you dice that up? Because
I'll tell you what it is.
And please don't make fun of me immediately, like Gen X guy.
I won't. I'll be gentle, which Xers are never gentle to each other, but I'll be gentle to you.
Okay. Dice it up. Give it to me.
So I'll tell you what it is.
Give it to us.
Gen Xers, when they became investors, their philosophy was the world doesn't give a crap about me. We're all going to be losers. We're all losers, baby, right? And so I want to get some contrarian investment that's going to be a winner. And unlike everyone else in my generation, I will win and they'll all lose, right? So that was kind of the Gen X outlook. The millennial outlook is very different, and they drive investment now. The millennial outlook is this. We're all very special. Our parents told us that we're very special. And we're all going to be winners, and I'll tell you what we're all going to do. We're going to lash our lifeboats together. We're all going to go together into the market, because either two things will happen. Either we'll rise together and we won't have to envy each other, because millennials, they're kind of into teamwork. They don't like to envy each other. Or we'll all go down together and they'll have to bail us all out. Yeah. And I think they're correct. Yeah. I think they've absolutely figured it out. I think if they all go down together, I think the Fed, Congress, everybody will have to bail them out. Even if it causes huge inflation, at least they won't be allowed to be lost, right? That's the difference.
That's a huge difference. And, and I'm willing to believe what the larger amount of people believe. Like, that's the market. More buyers than sellers, right? There are more millennials than there are Gen Xers. That's a thing. If I look at the people that are my age that are becoming dinosaurs certainly in the hedge fund business, in the last 3 days, they've become a dinosaur in the hedge fund business. I mean, the most rolling short basket of super duper hedge fund, I'm betting against your company because I'm really smart bets, are up like 13.5% in 3 days. I mean, it's just like, it's an unsustainable way to start your day as a portfolio manager, as a Gen X person, the way you described it. Because the crowd's winning and your smart ass is the new dumbass. What do you think about that? I mean, that's more my world. Could you say that runs in parallel for the generation versus my generation? Is that how millennials think about me, like in the room there when I'm sitting with them?
I think millennials look at you and they think, I don't want to get on that guy's bad side, and they think that you're all into results. You're all into action. You don't take pity on losers. No, I'm just telling you. I mean, this is how they see it. Gen X in general, Keith, not personally.
Well, Gen X doesn't run the country, right? I mean, the baby boomers run the country.
Oh, they do run the country now.
Look
at Trump's cabinet.
I mean, in the context of your fourth turning, you have the presidents have still been. Obama was a Gen X, but
yeah, but he was around the cusp. Boomer Xer is right there, 61, right on the line. But basically, Gen Xers, no, Gen Xers have not yet been in the top spot. They will be in the top spot just after the crisis. At least that has been the pattern. You know, during or just after, but certainly not before the climax.
So can you win as a Gen X running as a skeptic, the way that you the prototype that you described, or do you have to be the work together trade?
You can, when you go beyond ideology, go on partisanship, and things get so deep, so dire that they want someone in there that's just the facts. Just give me orders. Just, this would be a George Patton, a Dwight Eisenhower, and Omar Bradley. You know what I'm talking about? That kind of personality. Because at that time, you just want someone who can actually win with the least possible cost. Mm-hmm. And that's a Gen Xer.
Do you think, so let's bring this all the way back to the market. Let's say we're on that. Let's say that this bull market, I'm just making an argument based on rates of change, right? We're going to hit a quad 4 in the second half of next year. Quad 4 is where shit hits the fan, right? So let's say we get to the highest point that nobody can imagine. I'd say that the market's doing a pretty good job of that, by the way. You get to the highest level that anybody's ever seen. Now you have the most participation, because it's not just millennials with a huge number of humans participating, but their grandparents and all their boomer money. How's that going to go? I mean, it's a pretty inopportune time for anyone over the age of 65 to lose half of what's in their retirement account.
Well, layer that on the fact that that's when we have the midterms, right? Yeah, think about that. JT, do you have any thoughts about that? What do we know about midterms when the market is totally tanking, right? That'd be interesting.
Typically two-party control is the market favors that as opposed to one-party control. So that's one way to look at it.
So JT, I want to get into this, and Keith, this is important. I think, JT, we both agree that if there's one thing that Trump absolutely does not want, one of his highest priorities, he cannot lose Congress in the midterm.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Everything. He will pull out all stops.
It's not going to be in the public, but if you talk to anyone behind the scenes, he is fixated on the midterms.
Okay, so
amongst other things, but
what are the options open to him, and what could he do to sort of pull America in the Republican direction in the vote?
I mean, you're seeing some of it take place before our very eyes on the National Guards in some of the major cities right now. It's likely that they're going to remain there for some time. You see them trying to raise, both sides, by the way, but more the Trump side, raising gobs of money, whether it's dark money or PAC money or other types of monies here. Record sums are going to be spent in the midterms coming up. And I think the Republicans definitely have the advantage there because they have the White House and they have Trump at the helm. And then you're seeing this whole gerrymandering, this whole redistricting debate taking place in the middle of a decade. And it's somewhat unprecedented that we're trying to change congressional maps mid-decade and all to move larger numbers of seats in one direction. And so the Republicans are doing it in Texas. The Democrats are going to try to counter in California. So there are a number of things that are taking place right now that Trump and others are using, other tools that they're using to keep their advantage going into the midterm.
We also see
he does not want to lose the House. Last time he lost the House, it was a disaster for him, and he knows it. So he set out.
And this time he will not allow it. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, I believe the Supreme Court might actually rule on that. They may get rid of it in time for them to do something before the midterm. Is that right? That could change some of the Southern.
I don't think it's going to be in time. So I talked to Glencher before the call on that very topic. And Paul Glencher, our Supreme Court watcher, and he basically said, since it's going to be such a divisive opinion by the Supreme Court, that it'll take some time to issue that opinion. So he's looking at some point next spring or summer before they rule, and he believes that that's going to be too late for the midterms. Think about some of the primaries will have already taken place, et cetera.
Could it be that the Speaker of the House could even refuse to credential Democrat. I'm talking about now real hardball here, right? Certain Democrat that's been talked about. How much is Trump going to push?
I personally don't think Speaker Johnson or anyone will go that far. But again, I've, anything is possible next year. I can see where it's down to, think about this. Keith knows this from our calls every morning. The majority that the Republicans have in the House. If it comes down to, I mean, that's as narrow as it's been historically. I mean, there's a wider margin in the Senate. So if it comes down to one seat or there's a district that's in question,
They'll invent something. They'll invent some issue for some Californian coming in late at night that night, right? They'll say, there's some scandal we can't.
Think of all the counting antics from 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think, Neil, you've done a lot of work on this, and there's also a fair amount of data to support what might be the answer. Guys, go to slide 13 on Neil's deck here. You know, the question on, do you think Trump is creating chaos and disorder? The majority of people younger than me are saying yes, right? The people that are my age and older are saying, maybe not. Some people might probably just exhausted by the whole damn thing if they're my age and older. But like, you have this setup. I did not mean to laugh for the question, because it's not funny at all. But you have the setup for political violence. We've already had an atrocious act of political violence that most people.
Do you want to go to that chart actually on the violence? Because we have
we have that?
I think two charts on that.
Yeah, okay, guys, can you go to
Towards the end, I think.
Right at the end? Yeah, go to the very end. The Civil War chart, or no, a different chart?
No, earlier. Right, you can go through these quickly, and then we can talk about them.
That's fine.
Go back a few. Political violence.
Oh, there we got it. Okay.
There it is.
Okay. All right. So take a look at that chart. Bring it up again. And if you want to look, I think it's the chart before. If you see, this is the one. This is interesting because this is nicely over time. You see how Americans saying political violence is a big problem has been going up over time. You see, these were polls asked after the attack on Paul Pelosi, Donald Trump, Josh Shapiro, Melissa Portman. I believe that was the Minnesota, right?
Yep.
I think,
yes.
Okay. So we see. So that's the trend, and then the next chart you can see. Take a look at this. The next chart, I believe. Yeah, you can see the trend over time. Now, older people think it's a bigger problem than younger people. I guess that's not terribly surprising. Young people feel, I don't know, maybe they've been raised a little bit more to think that this is normal. But you can see here, these are large percentages who say not just that it's a problem, but a very big problem. But anyway, this is a little background to your political violence. And Keith, back to you. You were gonna ask about this by age. Was that your question?
Yeah, like does one perpetuate? Does one generation's behavior perpetuate? That kind of a thing happening when it doesn't. Like, I mean, to me, Charlie Kirk, he's a lot younger than me. My eyes have been open to a lot of different things that I didn't even know was going on, just because that's not my discourse. It's not my day. But every young person, I have 4 kids. You guys have. You can see this by just watching like how they communicate, like how they talk about it. I have 2 teenagers at least that that are in high school where that's just constant. I mean, this is like game on part of every day's conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, just right down to the growth. Like Jack came in. Jack's 17. He came into my office and he said, "Dad, they showed it." And he was like, that was not a good thing. So this is they all live on that fucking phone, man. Like they're all
Here's where Trump enjoys something of a sort of a virtuous cycle of feedback on this, and I think he's benefited by it. That is to say, the more people think that this country is out of control, chaos, to use the word of that chart, right?
Yeah.
The more anyone who plays the strong man benefits. That's just always true. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter who causes it. It doesn't matter if it's even the strong man that causes the chaos. You still benefit by it. You still want someone who's actually pretends to be in charge, right? And I think Trump has benefited from that. The more things seem unsettled, right? And this is why very often in his press conferences, he will talk about the enemy within and the enemy without. He'll talk about us versus them. He'll talk about emergency, chaos. We got a lot of dark things in America we need to worry about. It puts until the Democrats come up with a rival strongman. And JT, maybe you could tell us if there's any candidate out there.
You're going with Carl. You're going all Carl Schmitt. Remember Carl Schmitt?
Yeah, Carl Schmitt. And so Carl Schmitt was a very famous political scientist in the 30s, in the 20s and 30s in Germany. He finally joined the Nazi Party and so on, but he got a huge reputation, and he was famous for one thing. He said, in any political system, the person who has ultimately all the power is the person who can decide when there is an emergency and who can actually call emergency powers, right? And he said, it's all who defines the exception, who defines the emergency, who defines when you suspend everything else and impose order, right? Because every system allows for that, right? Even the Roman Republic had a dictator, right? At a certain time when you bring in a dictator. But I think that Trump is obviously, he sees himself, his entire persona is fulfilling that role.
Yeah. I mean, Keith, I know you want to hit, and this is a perfect segue for you, so I'll let you take it from here. But think about April 2nd, Liberation Day. That was the use of emergency tariff powers, emergency powers. He who has the power can declare an emergency on trade, and that's exactly what he did on April 2nd.
Yeah, you can turn the stock market on and off. You can declare no meeting with Xi, Mr. Miyagi, risk on. Okay, let's do wax on, wax off. That he did it with tariffs. That's what I called it, Mr. Miyagi policy. I mean, it's not. Mr. Miyagi, he's a Gen X authority, right? He was the teacher. He's like Yoda. Like, we want that, right? But we're running out of time here. But I mean, just to front run those elections, just to stay on this point, Neil, like, if what people want is the strong man or woman, like the person who can take charge, you're kind enough to say that about me. I don't know if that was a total compliment, but in terms of like, people don't want to piss you off. But I mean, like JD Vance, and if you give JD Vance a topic, he speaks with authority on the topic, with specificity on the topic. Like, that's what people like about him. You probably say the same thing about Vivek Ramaswamy. He's nobody's fool. Like, he knows more than most people could forget more on the way to the bathroom than Neil Howe, other than Neil Howe. Yeah, these are like, don't they need to win? Do you think that that's one of the top things that they need to win, is if you're to like use factor exposures for every political candidate in the midterms, that they need to have stronger leadership?
Well, they need, yes. And I'll tell you a very interesting development in the Democratic Party. There are a number of people running now for House who are total working class testosterone guys.
Really?
JD, I think one of them is running in Maine, one of them is running in Ohio, and you see actually Seth Moulton, I think, is running for Senate now in Massachusetts. He's a veteran. But here's what you're getting on the Democratic side: a lot more testosterone, right, in leading candidates. And if I were the Democrats, if I were an advisor to the Democrats, I'd say this is what you need in your candidates. You need a lot more testosterone in the sense of being the decider kind of persona. You also need someone who goes to the right culturally and to the left economically. And they haven't had anyone like that. The only person who was a little bit like that was Bernie Sanders. And JT, he actually did get an audience. He still is getting an audience
Yeah.
around the country. But, you know, they haven't had, the Democrats haven't, there's not been a person like that since Huey Long, right?
Yeah.
The 1930s. And he scared the hell out of FDR because he ran against FDR from the left going into 1936. Unfortunately, he was, well, I should say maybe fortunately, he was assassinated on the steps of the Louisiana state capitol in I guess the end of 1935, right? So he wasn't able to run. But that kind of persona, you think, in my opinion, nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
And that's what would solve a lot of answers for the Democrats right now.
I mean, that's a massive vacuum. They have no one that fits that bill at the top tier right now. Not even close.
It is indeed. We got to wrap it up here. It's a behavioral vacuum. Big, big, huge, tremendous, like nothing you guys have ever seen, right? Thanks for, I like doing this. Maybe we should do our internal calls just like this. I feel like I can see you guys better. Thanks
Like it too.
Thanks for doing it together, guys. From West Virginia, right, Neil?
West Virginia, deep
West
in the
Virginia?
ruby red zone here.
And I poo-pooed DC. I was just joking, a bad joke by the Canadian.
It's all good.
Yeah, but I'm still here in Stamford, Connecticut. We're going to move on to the Ham guys. Ham, Hedgeye Asset Management. Have you heard about that? We have all of them on. I think it's going to be might even be close to an or something like that. We'll be right back.